Hello, my friends. Hello, and welcome once again to stately Vaughan Manor, where Roger and I have returned because it's my weekend reading report. That's right, it's time for my weekend reading report where I talk about all the exciting stuff I read during the past week. And I read some stuff this week. Not a ton of stuff, but I read some stuff. So let's talk about it. Of course, I'm on my never ending quest to read Barney and finish Barney the Vampire, which has proved challenging because it's enormous. And there are some other things about Barney, I have to say. Let's just say it stretches things out, this story. Penny Dreadfuls were good at that. They'd take a story and just stretch it out as much as they can. And that's what they do. So I had originally planned on not reading any other books, any other prose books at least, except Varney, and just powering through Varney. But you cannot power through Varney. So my original plan of making the attempt at least of finishing Varney in October obviously did not go according to plan. I'm only about 40% through Varney. I'm this far in the first volume. And see, I'm on chapter LXXX, whatever chapter that is. And so, yeah, I'm continuing on with Barney, the Eternal Vampire book. It's interesting. I have to say, it's fun. Dr. Chillingworth, actually, it turns out, one of the characters in this book, a doctor who is a friend of the Bannerworth family, suddenly remembers at this point in the story that, hey, I know I've seen Varney before. I know he looked familiar. He hasn't mentioned this up until this point, but suddenly he realizes that he's seen Varney before. And that's because Dr. Chillingworth actually was a reanimator before Herbert West. Dr. Chillingworth found the secret of reanimating corpses. He learned it from the French, apparently. And there was this guy that was hanged. And it turns out that the guy that was hanged he was a highwayman, I think. It turns out he was Varney. And Dr. Chillingworth used they never explain exactly how this whole reanimation thing happens. It's vague on that point. But Dr. Chillingworth brings Varney back to life. And then he pulls a Frankenstein and immediately runs out of the room. And, Varney escapes. And he was under a different name at this time, Varney was, when he was a highwayman and executed. But Dr. Chillingworth's like, yeah, that's where I've seen him before. And the book kind of hints that the only reason this whole reanimation thing actually worked is because Varney's a vampire and you can't kill Varney by hanging him. But it's not, it's not 100% on that, because at this point, even this late in the game, 40% into Varney, we still are not sure if Varney is a real vampire or not. But we know he's been brought back from the dead. That much has been established. He's been brought back to the dead at least once. Well, it turns out, I know Varney is a vampire because, that is established later. So he's been brought back from the dead more than once, I think. So yeah, Varney is just rolling right along in some very strange ways. The main storyline of Varney trying to find the treasure, which is hidden away in the Bannerworth's estate, is still going on. And the Bannerworths and the Bannerworth's friends, like Dr. Chillingworth, they're still too stupid to know what Varney wants to do, why Varney wants to get into Bannerworth Hall. They haven't figured out, despite all of the many, many, many clues, that there is a treasure hidden away in their house. And that is what Varney wants. They still can't figure out why Varney's hanging out. Because they're all really dumb, I guess. So, yeah, interesting. But I did put it down for a time, and I picked this back up because I want to read the next of the Bachman books. I am reading every Stephen King novel in the order that they originally appeared under Stephen King's name. And the next thing I'm reading right now is the Bachman books, which was released in the 80s under Stephen King's name. By the way, this particular edition of the Bachman books, if you ever find it and you've never read the Bachman books before, don't read the introduction by Stephen King because he completely spoils the ending of The Running Man in it. And I'm assuming a lot of people have not read The Running Man. I don't think it's one of those books that everybody's read. But if you read the introduction to this, you will know exactly how it ends. So I don't know why authors do that. You know, it's like they just assume, well, surely you've read this book before. I wrote it. So in this new introduction, I could just spoil everything. I mean, if you're going to do that, put it at the back of the book. Make it an afterword. Ass. Anyway, helpful hint if you have this particular edition. The book I read this week is The Long Walk. Here is a poorly printed reproduction of the original Signet. It was Signet, right? The original Signet cover to The Long Walk. In a future America, the marathon is the ultimate sports competition. A novel of chilling, macabre possibilities by Richard Bachman, author of Rage. That book I didn't like a whole lot, Rage. But The Long Walk is pretty damn good. I was very impressed by The Long Walk. I thought it was a really good book. Whether this is a chilling, macabre possibility, I've always known the basic premise of The Long Walk ever since the Bachman books first came out, because they tell you what the premise is, which is you have a bunch of teenagers, 100 teenagers, and every year 100 teenagers will go on this state-sponsored sporting event called the Long Walk, where they walk down roads and highways nonstop until until there's only one person left walking. And if you stop walking, you get 3 warnings, a minute warning each. And if you stop walking, you're shot. You're killed if you don't keep walking, which is a pretty good motivation, which explains why the characters in this book keep walking for so long. And this idea seems ridiculous that any country would sponsor this kind of thing. Hey, let's get a bunch of teenagers and they'll just walk and we'll shoot 99 of them, you know, and yeah, we'll kill 99 out of these 100 teenagers and it'll be a great sporting event and everybody will watch it on television and it'll be a huge national craze. This seems ridiculous. At least it did to me when I first read it. Now, after living through the past 8 years, I've seen some things these past 8 years which I never thought I would see. And now this doesn't seem so far-fetched. I could actually see this happening in real life, unfortunately. But as far as the book itself, it's excellent, I think. I think Stephen King does a great job in this book. There are points that you could certainly criticize in this book, that's for sure. But it's actually pretty good. It's not too long, as a lot of Stephen King books tend to be. Has a good ending, which is more than you can say for some Stephen King books. Unlike the last Bachman book, Rage, the dialogue in this book is excellent for the most part, and the characters are great, and the character development of the characters is really well done. You become very invested in the story. I kind of felt like I was on the Long Walk after a while. It's pretty grueling, this book. Really enjoyed it. The Long Walk. If you haven't read it and you're a Stephen King fan, this is one you should definitely read. Like I said, there are things you can criticize about this book. Even despite the motivation, I'm not sure these kids could keep walking as long as they do. They walk for days without stopping, for the most part. And not only that, but they keep talking a lot longer than I think they would. I think after a couple days of walking nonstop, you wouldn't be talking that much to your fellow walkers. I think you would just be kind of a zombie at that point. But you know what? I'm not sure. I don't know for sure, but it seems that way to me. But this is a minor criticism of this work of fiction. I thought it was pretty great, The Long Walk. So a vast improvement over Rage, certainly, and I'm certainly glad I read it. So that was excellent, and I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up being my favorite of the 4 books in this collection. The next book I have to read is Road Work. His life was in the path of the wrecking ball, but he wouldn't budge. Apparently, they want to make a highway past this guy's house, and he's refusing to go anywhere, and he's got a gun. So I imagine this is, kind of a story about this guy who will not move and has to be forced to move, but he's going to, barricade himself in his house, I suppose, and try to fight off the government, I suppose. Yeah, that's what I think Roadwork is probably about. But I haven't read it yet, so I'm just guessing that that's what that's about. Yeah. Yeah, because the only description on the back is, what happens when one good and angry man fights back is murder and then some. So, we'll see. We'll see how that is. But yeah, Long Walk, I could say, was pretty great. So I read that, and that was book, out of my 500 book challenge, that was book 196. 196. So a few more books and I'm at 200. This challenge has gone on forever and I'm not even halfway through. 196. I don't know what number Barney will end up on, but I'm back to reading Barney now, and I'll probably read Roadwork I'll probably start it sometime this week, maybe in a couple days. But for right now, I'm reading Barney again. And I have been reading, of course, the Fantastic Four, because I'm reading every issue of the Fantastic Four from the first run of the Fantastic Four, which ran from 1961 through 1996. The next comic book on my Marvel Master Plan challenge, and this is excellent. Now, I'm in the 70s right now. The 60s are over. Jack Kirby has left the book. Stan Lee is still writing the book. But at this point, Big John Buscema, one of my favorite comic book artists of all time, is drawing the Fantastic Four. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And I just read the issue where we have a titanic battle between the Hulk and the Thing. And it's certainly up to this point in the comic, the best battle between the Hulk and the Thing. It's great. And there's a massive amount of property damage, as you would expect. And that actually has repercussions in the Fantastic Four comic book. So then, we have to go to the awful aftermath, because it looks like the Hulk has killed the Thing. The Hulk has killed the Thing. The Hulk didn't kill the Thing, but it looks like he did for, a page. And the issue I'm on now is issue 113 with the Overmind. 113 with the Overmind. And these are actually some of the first stories of the Fantastic Four that I ever read when I was a kid. And I was buying them when I was a kid, but they were reprints at the time I was picking them up. Marvel used to, every month, along with their regular comic book line, would have some comics that would reprint older comics, like Marvel Tales, I think, and some other ones. And there was a comic, I forget the name of it, that was reprinting older Fantastic Four issues. And they were reprinting the issues from around this time. So I remember reading these issues before. But it was, I was 6 or 7 or something. I was young when those were being reprinted. I can't remember when it was. But it was before I was a teenager, I think. But it's been a while, and they're fantastic. The issues from around this period, they're great. So, yeah, I'm reading the Fantastic Four. And I'm also, for my Impossible DC project, reading Batman from the beginning. And the point I am at now, I'm reading Batman on my tablet. I'm at Detective Comics number 42. Detective Comics number 42. And it has this cool cover. So at this point in Detective Comics, Batman is a hit. And Batman at this point is on every cover of Detective Comics. And Batman has gotten his own comic book at this point. I've read the first 2 issues of Batman, which are great. And I have to say, one thing that surprised me in rereading these is just how much better the Batman comic book got with the introduction of Robin. Robin makes a real difference. And when I was younger, I wouldn't have believed that because I thought Robin was so lame when I was young reading comic books. But Robin's great, man. And he makes a real difference in this comic book. And all of a sudden, the comic book is more action-packed, more interesting, more fun to read. So Robin was a good improvement to the Batman comic. So yeah, I'm continuing to read Batman, and will continue to read Batman probably for the rest of my natural life. Or unnatural life if my pal Roger has anything to do with it. So yeah, that's everything I think. I can't think of anything else that I read this week. I did get a couple things in the mail. I'll talk about those at another time. So I'm hoping I'll catch you tomorrow. Hopefully I'll catch you tomorrow. And I'll definitely catch you on Wednesday for Epic Comic Book Wednesday. And I will catch you next time.